All right, Shalom. I want to start off by giving all praise, honor, and glory due to Yahweh, Bahashem, Yahweh Shai, Bahashem, Rakak Wadash. I like to give double honors unto the apostles and the elders of the great millstone who I learned this truth from. And I like to say peace and salutations, sons of the hopefully elect. And today, I'm just going to be doing, a response to, the statements that Captain Zazariak made. How still throwing the term conspiracy theorists around, saying he doesn't trust crypto, which, again, it's all fake money, it's all digital, you know. But one thing that, these other groups like the IUIC and ISUPK, one thing they like to say about, Great Millstone is that, we're conspiracy theorists. And I'm saying, we collectively, but starting with our apostles, and the elders, but they like to throw that term around, conspiracy theorists or conspiracy nuts, because again, they still don't believe that, the mark of the beast is the RFID microchip when it's so plain at this point in time that we're in that the mark of the beast is not only a physical thing, but that is in fact something that is going to be implanted in people's hands and heads, man, in their head. In their heads, but these guys just can't get it either, just like the apostles say, that they believe that these guys sold out, or if they didn't sell out, the Lord blinded them, from getting this extremely important prophecy, which this is one of the many prophecies that you just simply can't get wrong, because this is the next major prophecy that, we're waiting on. Obviously, Jacob's trouble, but the mark of the beast, this is what we're looking for, man, and we can see it. It could be implemented, very soon, because we can clearly see that, they're getting ready for this thing. You had Mexico, how this year they're just gonna, go completely cashless, and I forget where else, they were planning on doing that same thing. I think it might have been, China. If they're not already, a cashless society, they want to go completely cashless, but, they want to also, introduce, the chip, man, to their people. But as we know, it has to be pushed here in Babylon first, because this is primarily where people are going to get it, man, here. But I'm just going to play, part of the live clip, from the elder brother, Amawan Gabar, and bring out a couple of scriptures. Lord willing, this lesson is edifying and straight to the point.
Can give an exchange for goods and services. That's all it is. But they ain't that, whatever, bro. I'm good. I'm chilling.
No control of it. That's what my brain says. But I think Kadazar may be able to talk about it.
Yeah, that's what my brain says.
That I can. Kadazar, I don't know if you want to chime in on that, because I don't trust crypto at all. Okay. You could just see as far as whatever.
My bad. I'm sorry to cut it off. And the caller didn't really say. I mean, I didn't see the earlier part of this video. Maybe he said it. Maybe the caller said it or not. But from what I heard, the caller ain't say nothing about crypto. He mentioned the technocracy. I don't recall him saying nothing about crypto. So, from my understanding, Tazariak is associating what he's asking.
Currency is fake money. Yes,
crypto.
It is. So is this. This little, that's fake money too.
It's like you're sitting in the car. Forgot the other phone was hooked up, but either way it goes, you can clearly see that, this guy's still denying that the mark of the beast is indeed, the RFID microchip. But how is it a conspiracy when they're getting the people ready for this? When they're trying to phase out the dollar. Just earlier today, Donald Trump put out, you know, this guy put out a tweet on Twitter, you know, about the reset. Let me get the exact quote. So Slakia, give me a second, you know, to pull it up. Because again, man, this is serious. Like this guy just doesn't understand, you know. Yep, right here. Put it up on my other phone. But this is quote from, you know, President Donald J. Trump. It says, "World's most powerful reset." World's most powerful reset. So, right, why would he make a statement like that? You know, world's most powerful reset, because what they deem as the Great Reset, which is to collapse this current society to bring about this next society, this fourth industrial revolution, you know, which is to merge, you know, man with technology, you know, man and machine, even though it's primarily, you know, the technology. This is why they're getting, you know, the 6G ready, you know, because they want everything to be connected to the internet. This is how you're going to be able to use that device, you know. So something is going to happen to where, you know, the banks, they're going to fail, they're going to crash. And everybody that has money in the bank, they're going to lose their money, you know, which again, you know, I was watching a brother's video earlier, how again, this money that we have, this fiat currency is not real. You know, it's not real money, because real money, you know, is about weight, you know, and it's what? Gold and silver, you know, and not only, you know, gold and silver, but also livestock, you know, land, but primarily, you know, gold and silver. That's real money, you know. These FRNs are only debt notes, you know. And then the money that, you know, we have in that we have in the bank is just what? Numbers on the screen, ones and zeros, man. You know. So all of that is going to change, you know. Everybody's account is going to be at zero. The US dollar is going to be deemed worthless. And what is going to bring about that next currency, which is going to be what? The central bank digital currency. And how are you going to be able to use that? If you have the RFID microchip, you know. So real quick, before I go into the scriptures. So I went to chat and asked it, you know, just simply, what is a conspiracy theory? It says, a conspiracy theory is a belief or explanation that says an event or situation is secretly controlled or caused by a powerful group of people working together. A conspiracy, usually in a hidden or deceptive way. And is that not what's happening? Do not a group of people work together to bring about these particular things? And do they do it not in a hidden and deceptive way? You know, sounds very familiar to me. You know, doesn't sound very, you know, conspiracy like. This sounds like something that is actually happening, right? Because again, that's factual. You do have, you know, the so-called 13 families. You know, I can't, you know, name all of them, you know, offhand, but, you know, the primary, you know, families, you know, the Rothschilds, the Rockefellers, the DuPonts, the Gettys, the Oppenheimers, you know, just to name a few. But these are all families that work together to do what? To bring about the New World Order, you know. And of course they do it in secret. But now certain of the things they're doing out in open, you know, because the American people are too stupid to see what's really going on behind the scenes. So it says what key features. Hidden actors. It said it claims that important events are not what they seem, but are secretly orchestrated behind the scenes, and indeed they are. Just like the CK situation, just like, the 911, which is going to mention, just like, the Boston situation that took place, it's 2026, so 13 years ago. It's man, come on, man. These things aren't coincidences, It says what? Lack of solid evidence. These theories often rely on speculation, selective facts, or mistrust of official explanations, because again, you can't trust what mainstream media has to say. This is why you have to look at alternative news, because again, they're going to put out whatever story they want to put out just to get the people to believe whatever they want them to believe. They're going to push a certain narrative. This is what happened, but in reality, it's deeper than that. Says distrust of authority. Governments, corporations, or organizations are often assumed to be lying or covering things up. Well, they are. I mean, again, that's not the government lies all the time. Your president alone, tells lies. Just like the lie he told how, he was going to end wars, but, end the war with, Russia and Ukraine. Did he do that? No. Instead, he started a war with Iran, which is eventually going to lead to a war with Russia. It says difficult to disprove. It says even when evidence contradicts the theory, believers may argue that the evidence itself is part of the cover-up, and depending on, whatever particular situation took place, again, it can be, and it says examples, it says the idea that the Apollo moon landing was faked. It was. Claims that, the September 11th attacks were an inside job. It was. Says the belief that secret groups control politics or media. It's actually both. They control politics and media, and they do secret groups. These different networks, these different secret societies, which all work for the same people, because again, when people say the Illuminati, of course they think it's just one secret society. No, it's a web. They're all connected in some form or fashion, so again, this is true. This is not a theory. These are facts, This says not all conspiracies are fake. Real conspiracies do happen, like political scandals or corporate cover-ups. The difference is that the conspiracy theories usually lack credible evidence. It's like it lack credible, verifiable evidence or ignore stronger explanation. So, they keep throwing that term around, man, saying that, we're conspiracy theorists concerning the mark of the beast, when in fact they're rolling out digital currencies. They're rolling out this technology to be implanted into people. It speaks of a physical mark that is going to go into people's hands and in their heads, man. It says foreheads, but it's going to still go in their head, man. If these guys didn't sell out, then obviously the Lord didn't open their eyes to see this particular prophecy, because again, it's plain. It's so plain, man. People in the world can even see what the mark of the beast is, but these guys can't. It's crazy, So I'm going to get the book of Habakkuk 2 and verse 3. It says, for the vision is yet for an appointed time, but at the end it shall speak and not lie. Though it tarry, wait for it, because it will surely come, it will not tarry. And what, man? The vision is yet for an appointed time in these prophecies. Again, the major one we're looking for is what? The fulfillment of Revelation chapter 13, verse 16 to 18. The mass implementation of the mark of the beast, which again is the RFID microchip, man. We can see it. It's being made. They're getting ready to roll this thing out, man. Because the way I see it, they're gonna do it the same way they did with, the C-19 shot. First is voluntary. Oh, you don't have to get it. You can get it if you want. It's not mandatory, to eventually it being mandatory. Okay, well, if you want to be able to, drive your car, live in your house or your apartment, wherever you want to be able to get this food, you want to be able to live, get this device. That's going to be their solution, man. So even though it seems like this particular prophecy is tearing, it's not, man. It's not. It's here. These guys, man, they don't got it. They don't got it, man. It's crazy work. That's the book of Revelation, chapter 13. Now I'll start at verse 15, and it says, "And he had power to give life unto the image of the beast, that the image of the beast should both speak and cause that as many as would not worship the image of the beast should be killed." So right, the elect, man, the men of the Lord, they're going to resist, this man's mark, and ultimately, again, his new world order, man, because again, we're already, enemies of the new world order. So again, that's what Esau Edom is going to seek to do to certain members of well, not just certain, but still, he's going to want to take us out because we don't want to get down, because we refuse to bow the knee to this man, not literally, but still bowing the knee, in a sense that, all right, we're going to go ahead and get this chip just so that we can live. No, man. If anything, Lord willing, we be of the elect, we're in that same spirit, that our forefather Moses was in, man, and he said, what, I'd rather suffer with, roughly paraphrasing, that I'd rather suffer with my people than to enjoy sin for a season, which, I actually grabbed it because I kind of butchered it, but that's the mentality of the elect, that we would rather suffer than to, enjoy pleasures just for a season, Yeah. Hebrews chapter 11 and verse 25. Verse 24, I'll start at 24. Hebrews 11 and 24 says, "By faith, Moses, when he was come to years, refused to be called the son of Pharaoh's daughter, choosing rather to suffer affliction with the people of God than to enjoy the pleasures of sin for a season." So right, Moses didn't want to be called the son of Pharaoh's daughter, because again, he was an Israelite, but what, Pharaoh's daughter, raised him, so he chose rather to suffer with his people than to, again, enjoy sin for a season, man, because what ultimately happened to ancient Egypt, man, it was destroyed. It was plagued. And Egypt never rose again after the Lord plagued that place, man. So again, how much more America? But the point being is that, again, he rather suffer with his people than to live good, man, because again, this is what people are going to seek to do, even those of our own people. They're going to want to save their lives, and they're going to lose their lives, man. And how are they going to try to save their lives? By getting this chip. So coming back to Revelation chapter 13, this is verse 16. It says, "And he causeth all, both small and great, rich and poor, free and bond, to receive a mark in their right hand or in their foreheads, and that no man might buy or sell save he that had the mark, or the name of the beast, or the number of his name. Here is wisdom. Let him that hath understanding count the number of the beast, for it is the number of a man, and his number is 666. And right, this is literal, just like it says in verse 16. It doesn't matter what your status is in the society, whether you're rich or you're poor, you're locked up, or you're free as in you have liberty. You're not in jail. Free in that sense, because again, we're all slaves to the system. But it doesn't matter what your status is, man. But whether you're rich, you're poor, you're bound, or you're free, man. We're all going to have to face that choice on whether or not we're going to receive the mark of the beast, because this is what, again, they're failing to realize, is that we're all going to be tried, because how else are you going to be able to buy and sell? If the mark of the beast, according to Captain Zaryak, is sleeping with white women, then explain this. It's the book of Revelation chapter 16 and verse 2. It says, "And the first went and poured out his vial upon the earth, and there fell a noisome and grievous sore upon the men which had the mark of the beast, and upon them which worshipped his image." And right, those that receive the mark of the beast are going to get a grievous sore, which is ultimately what? A cancer, which, if I remember correctly, the definition for that word grievous or sore is what? Helkos, which I'll look it up real quick. Yep. Strong's G 1668 Helkos, which says what? A wound, especially a wound producing a discharge, pus, a sore, an ulcer. So right, does it clearly not say that people are going to get the mark of the beast in their hand and in their forehead? So people that get it in their hand, they're going to get that cancer in their hand. The people that get, the Neuralink or whatever they're going to call it, but I'm just using that particular one as an example, in their head, they're going to get that grievous sore, wherever that device is, man. Why? Because it's going to be emitting radiation. That device is going to be running off of that individual's body heat. That's how it's going to be able to run, So if sleeping with white women is the mark of the beast, according to Captain Zaryak, then where's the grievous sore? Because if that's the case, man, a lot of us brothers is doomed. Because I myself, I'm doomed if that's the case, But we know that's not the case. But how are you going to be able to buy and sell, as it says in verse 17? Because right now we're still able to buy and sell with what? With the dollar. Or if you want to use, your credit card, your debit card, whatever, you still have options to pay, or how you want to pay for something. But once this society fully collapses, you're only going to have one choice to be able to buy and sell, is to get that chip, man, and which, just like it says, the number of the beast, 666, which, goes into what? The UPC code, because everything that we buy has a barcode on it, which the first bar, the middle bar, and the last bar, they're all sixes, because, it's just Esau. Anything he does has something to do with that number, right? So I'm going to get the book of Revelation chapter 2 and verse 10. It says, "Fear none of those things which thou shalt suffer. Behold, the devil shall cast some of you into prison, that ye may be tried, and ye shall have tribulation 10 days. Be thou faithful unto death, and I will give thee a crown of life. So, right, this is going to be one of the penalties for refusing to take the mark of the beast. We're going to be thrown into concentration camps, some of us, so this is one thing that we have to be prepared for. Again, counting the cost, knowing and understanding what it is we're involved in, man, because again, this, according to, the U.S. government, this is an act of treason, but what? It says, be thou faithful unto death, man. Because some of the elect are going to lose their lives, man. Some of them. So let me grab that real quick. In chapter 20, Revelation chapter 20 and verse 4, it says, and I saw thrones, and they that sat upon them, and judgment was given unto them. And I saw the souls of them that were beheaded for the witness of Yahushai, and for the word of Yahweh, and which had not worshipped the beast, neither his image, neither had received his mark upon their foreheads or in their hands. And they lived and reigned with Hamashiach 1,000 years. And the point being is that some of the elect are gonna, they're gonna die. If they die, they're gonna be dying honorable deaths, because again, they're just like it says in that Revelation 2:10, to be faithful unto death. Those elect members that, make it up until that point and, get beheaded, again, that they're dying an honorable death, man. They were faithful until the end, man, because all of the elect won't die. Certain of the elect will, but what? They're going to be among the first to be risen up, upon the second coming of our Lord Yahushai, because again, man, this is what's coming. So that guy doesn't know what he's talking about, man. He doesn't. Oh, and with this is the book of Revelation chapter 3 and verse 10. And it says, because thou hast kept the word of my patience, I also will keep thee from the hour of temptation, which shall come upon all the world to try them that dwell upon the earth. And right, we're all going to be tried, This guy talking about he doesn't trust, cryptocurrency. I mean, you don't have to, because again, it's not real money. And again, cryptocurrency isn't the mark of the beast. Sleeping with white women, an embargo, sending all its forms, or whatever they're saying the mark of the beast is, other than other than the RFID microchip, they're incorrect, because that's what it is. It's that device. And it's been made plain, man. If people that are in the world can see this, and guys that are, in these, different Israelite camps can't see it, again, that's a problem, because again, this is one of the most important prophecies that you simply cannot get wrong. But what? If they didn't sell out, then the Lord blinded them. He didn't want them to get it, because the same way, the apostles have been saying, because I could see it, the same way they did, with the Jews. Oh yeah, man, it's okay. Yeah, yo, you can get it. What happened in IUIC? They had certain of their congregation, members die from taking that stuff, man, from getting that poison injected into them. And that those people that perished got the okay from what? Their leadership. So who's to say you won't do that very same thing once this chip gets made mandatory, So don't be deceived, man. These aren't conspiracy theories. These are facts. The things that we're telling you. The digital currency is being set up. But the only way we're going to be able to use it is if you get a microchip and plant it into your hand or in your head, man. It's just that simple. The mark of the beast is the RFID microchip. So Lord willing, this lesson is Lord willing, this lesson was edifying. I want to give our praise, honor, and glory due to Yahweh, Bahashem, Yahushai, Bahashem, Rakakodash. I'd like to give double honors unto the apostles and the orders of Great Millstone, who I learned this truth from. And I'd like to say peace and salutations unto the hopefully elect. Till next time I say, Shalom.